Okay, let's call the meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee to order. It's Wednesday, July 26th. And let's start out with the approval of the minutes. You guys have a chance to review those?
Have
Yes.
reviewed them?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Sign those as soon as I get a pen.
All the Boy Scouts are ready.
I always have my red pencil. Okay. Adam's not here today.
No.
I'll give him to you. How's
Yes,
that?
sir. I'll take them.
All right. An exciting project to look at today. Hey, Amber.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Item 2A. Do we have a presentation? Jonathan?
We do it. We'll do a quick introduction by staff, and that'll be done by our Director of Parks and Recreation, Beaches Parks and Recreation, Samantha Wiley, and then we'll move on, and the representative, Amber Gregg of Pure Pride, will do a PowerPoint presentation of the item after Samantha's introduction.
Okay.
So good afternoon. Thank you for having us. This is the item before you this afternoon is to look at a consideration of improvements to the Pier Underpass and the sidewalk frontage area where the current trolley drop-off area is along Avenida Victoria. The city has worked with Pure Pride since 2017. They established a partnership agreement at that time with the city that Pure Pride came in to support the pier and improvements when the redevelopment fund was done away with, or we lost the redevelopment agency funding. So Pure Pride has worked every year on different projects to enhance the pier, everything from covering costs for the pier interpretive signs that you see there today, to supporting some funding towards the snack shack at the end of the pier, as well as the basic pier restaurant, or the pier restrooms in the middle of the pier. They're also working to help us fund the bike rack area improvements, supported us through holiday lighting that we'll see this coming holiday season. So a number of different projects, and Pure Pride looks really strategically at the projects that they select based on feedback they receive from the community, as well as their stakeholders and their board members. And then always the want is to confer back with the city to see what the city's priority projects are, keeping in mind that the number one goal is to reduce ongoing maintenance costs that the city incurs year over year for the pier. So they also contributed money to the pier netting that went underneath the pier this past year. They've also contributed funding towards repainting the pier as well. So today's project is to look at the design. We are funded through the CIP program for this current new fiscal year for $150,000 for design. Pure Pride is contributing $30,000 towards that cost as well, to again look at the engineered design of what could be the future of the pier underpass. I will turn it to Amber because she can give you details on how the proposed design came about and kind of provide additional insight in what the want was in achieving this. But this has been kind of gone through. Jonathan and I have worked with Pure Pride on this to try to get it into a space that feels pretty good. So this is a first pass at it. If there is a want to see improvements, that's the goal of today. If DRC wants to see changes made, we would be more than happy to come back with changes to the design as it's presented today. So this is definitely not intended to be a one-stop and then going forward, but really an opportunity for public input to make sure that we're checking all the boxes and get ourselves on the right track. So, Amber.
Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Amber Gregg. I think I know most everybody in the room, but it's very nice to be back. I'm the Vice President of Peer Pride. I've been serving on Peer Pride for a couple years now. If you don't know me, I was previously a city planner here at the community for 13 years and had the honor of serving Subcommittee that whole time and absolutely loved it, and was a historic preservation officer at one point in the city too. And so Peer Pride is definitely something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm honored to be a part of this very small but mighty group of individuals that really put their heart and soul into keeping our pier here at Subcommittee and making sure that we have that resource for generations to come. So Samantha, thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And just to reiterate a couple things that Sam had said, if you aren't familiar with Peer Pride in the room, we established in 2017 and we've been able to accomplish a project every single year since then. And for such a small organization, I think that's a pretty impressive track record. And not to belabor that, we can go over it later more, but to do one project a year, I'm always very impressed that we're able to accomplish that. But as Samantha said, our goal is to work with the city. By no means are we standalone. We look at ourselves very much as in partnership with the city. Our goal is just to help facilitate things. We know that the city's budget is very strapped, so we look at ourselves as helping to provide funding and maybe some of the legwork that the city can't do. We can do that as a volunteer basis on our end. So to kind of dive into this project, what it is that we're proposing is to do improvements around within the Parque Del Mar area that is right in front of where that underpass is that takes you across to the pier. So the goal is to provide needed improvements along Avenida Victoria. In that area, it's very busy, as we all know, but there are a couple of issues there. So we have, we need safer access to that underground area. That area also floods a lot whenever it rains, if anybody's had the unfortunate experience of having to go down there after a rain. There's a ton of water and sand that accumulates down there. It also serves as a pinch point, which is a good thing, right? When things are busy, that's great, but if there's a way for us to alleviate some of those pinch points and to help facilitate getting people around that area, that's also what we were looking at. And then in that area, although we have landscaping there, that landscaping tends to grow up, and it blocks a view from being on Avenida Victoria down out across the pier. And so that's something that for being a resident or being a visitor, we would really like to enhance that again. So maybe, you can enjoy it from the street and you don't actually have to go out on the pier and just see that beautiful view there. So those were some of the goals that we had. And as a sidebar, we didn't come up with these goals. As Samantha said, that we do surveys that we send out to the community through our social media blast, or if somebody has said, hey, would like to participate, we'll ask them to participate in a survey. We try to get as much feedback as possible, but the feedback that we do get, we then put those into potential action plans that we might be able to assist with. So for this particular project, we're actually hitting on 3 of the top things that people had commented on. There were about 6 in total, but with this master, I'll use that loosely, master plan of this, it could address the pier access, helping with facilitating the trolley access along there and getting people to and from, as well as those views there. So on the top right, I always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So that's what the area looked like previously, a long time ago when the pier was first established. So there are steps up to that area, but you did have almost a clear unobstructed view from that center bench area looking down the pier. And so I think that's a really good telling story. And so that's really what we took to heart when we saw this image, as a way to help improve the views as well as the access in that area. Currently where those steps are, we just have the landscaping in its place, as well as a sign for fishermen that's out there also, and then the stairs that lead down to the underpass area. On the bottom right, that's looking on the opposite side when you're actually standing on the pier looking down that passageway with a train crossing there also. So our vision is not only experiencing the pier when you're actually standing on the pier, but in the surrounding areas also. So as you approach the pier, we did enlist the help of Susan Radman Schwartz, who has done a lot of projects here in our community. And on a pro bono basis, they were able to put this design together for us in order to help facilitate this idea and have somebody to kind of bring all of these thoughts to fruition. And we're going to go over the plan that they put together through that. But it's definitely knowing that we're in the Pure Bowl area, which is a visitor serving lots of residents in the area. We had that in mind as we were going through that and wanted to enhance that visitor experience as well. So to jump into the plan, again, this is very conceptual. This is something that we brought to the city council, as Samantha said, and it's been, seed money has been appropriated for this design to start the design process on what it's going to look like, what the engineering is going to need, and the feasibility of this project. So orienting everybody, because we don't have that on here. On the right-hand side is Avenida Victoria. Number 4 is the crosswalk that goes along there between that area. And I'm going to see if this works. Okay. So here you have the sidewalk that would be today, and then the landscaping would be in this area. And the goal would be to actually have a flat paved surface here. We can't have those stepped up areas because of ADA requirements, so that would be another issue. So we envision this as being a flat area in this that would go right here, and then you would have the viewing area where the number 1 is. Now currently we would not be touching the stairs that go down, nor the tile murals that line both sides that were a community project a number of years ago that are very beloved by the community. So we do not want to touch those aspects of it at all. Again, this would help facilitate where the trolleys drop off and other pedestrian activity in this area. And then you have the other portions of the landscape area on here as well. So for a couple of very basic renderings on this, it is an architectural overlay, so we would envision this to be smooth stucco, treated with our typical finishing materials. You can see the tile caps on there, so that would be the Spanish tile caps. We do have iron shown. That's not necessarily the specific iron that's going to be used. We would be looking at something that is traditional for Spanish colonial revival. But this gives you a bit of a feel of what we were envisioning and what Redmond Schwartz was envisioning for this area. If we could hold questions till the end of the presentation, that might be beneficial. So as far as the action plan, as Samantha said earlier, so for the 23-24 city's fiscal CIP budget, there is seed money to do design work. Pure Pride is contributing to 20% of that cost, which is $30,000. Again, we look at ourselves as a partnership in this. Redmond Schwartz did 100% of the preliminary work that we've seen so far, because you got to start somewhere, right? They did that on a pro bono donation basis. And then we sharpened the phase 1 in order to be able to present an idea here to you today. And then we would also be fundraising to help contribute to the second phase, which would actually be the construction of the improvement should the project go forward, which is absolutely our goal. And then on the right-hand side, you can see some of the other projects that we've completed. In 2017, we did the painting of the pier. Then we did the label, or the what was it called? The art plaques, the educational plaques. Then we did the recycling containers. Then we did the restroom remodel and added murals onto those. And then there you can see the snack shack renovation, also with the murals that were added, all from local artists on there. So we're very fortunate to have them involved. So that completes our presentation. I'm very excited to see so many people here at the very beginning of this process. Again, we hope that it's a collaborative effort, and we look forward to everybody's comments.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, did you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. That's a switch. Okay.
I have a question.
Well, let us check. Do you guys have any questions?
Not of Amber at this time.
Okay. Cameron? No? Okay. Yeah, we can like to hear from the public. If anybody has comments or questions, why don't we just, does everybody here want to say something, or?
Yes, yeah.
I have a question first.
Right.
Could you go back to that picture where you show the walls, that rendering? Yeah, that one. Where are the walls that you're not going to touch? The walls that are there now with the tiles on them?
I'm sorry, repeat that, Larry?
The walls that are there now with the tiles on them, the ones you're not gonna touch, where are they in that rendering?
So on this one, because it's just supposed to be a general reference, not everything that's out there today is out there. It was meant to be conceptual. But if Eileen or Dawn want to chat in about the ones that are on the right where that individual is walking, we're holding the baby. Thank you. Here, I believe this is the one that leads down to the stairway. So your murals would be here. So that would be the wall that remains.
I have a question. Is the underpass gonna stay?
Yes, the
So
underpass is
how are you gonna
proposed.
keep the water out of it?
So that would be a question for the city.
So the goal is to improve the storm drain down there. And engineering is here that can speak to that as well. It does flood. Any major storm, it will flood, and we have to go in and vector it out. So we do want to fix that problem. Amir is here, and so is Belle. Amir, do you have any comments on that?
Hi, my name is Amir Al-Khanipur with Engineering Public Works. I would like to, the comment is that, as Samantha said, that the area does have drainage issues, and at times, or when we have heavy rains, that underpass unfortunately gets a lot of water, if not full of water. So we need to work on the drainage aspect of it, and on the drainage aspect of it, unfortunately takes a lot of money because we have to also study the storm drains in the areas upstream of this area that the runoff gets generated from. So, definitely there needs to be some improvements.
There's currently a
Part of this project?
Yes, that would be part of it. Currently, there's basically a sump pump that works to pump it out, but it cannot manage the capacity. So that's something else that we could look at, is to improve that pump to manage the volume. But that would be something that engineering would look at as another option.
And just to clarify that would be something that would come out of this phase 1 investigation for these plans, correct, Amir?
Correct. Again, exactly as Sam mentioned, the big project that would alleviate or eliminate the flooding issues in this entire area is going to need a lot of money. But quick solution, short-term solution would be that we will install a sump pump to help out to at least get some of the water out for the short term.
So my question is there plans to do that anyway, regardless of this project? I mean, because that definitely needs to be done.
Yeah, again, the short solution, installing a pump to try to get some water out, could be implemented with this project.
But it could. But if it isn't, what I'm saying is there any plans to get it done?
Well, again,
Outside of this project?
right, there is Public Works. We have it is in our mind, and I'm almost want to say that it is in the 6-year plan to improve the drainage in this area, but I'm not 100% sure. That's what I'm saying. But even if it is not, it is on our radar. We know that we have drainage issues down there, and if it's not, definitely will be in the next year's CIP budget. But I believe there is.
I think that should be the first #1 priority before all the aesthetics. Fix that first. And I think that's the main priority, #1. If we're gonna have a El Nino, a very early El Nino, then that's a problem that we need to start now.
Well, I would like to maybe comment that I think most of the improvements that I see here, they're not really, they're, for the lack of better any other words, it's cosmetic in a sense of when it comes to drainage, because again, the issue is the water basically finds its way down to the tunnel, which is the lowest point, and so that's going to do. And I believe that most of the improvements, the landscaping, the hardscaping, and all that is going to be on top, correct?
So it is envisioned that this would improve the drainage situation also. The goal is that it addresses all of them. And while doing that, while the city works through the CIP effort of improving drainage in some form or fashion, while we're in there in order to kind of get this higher up on the radar of things to check off the list, then yes, we would also like to see this area return more to what it was historically
Right.
as to what it is in our current state. So that's how the project is looked at.
If I can address Amanda's question, because I get what you're saying, that if there's a whole list of really projects within this project, right? There's the underpass, there's the plaza area, those are like mini projects within the project. The first phase that we're doing right now is design and engineering. Our goal is to get the costs of what this whole project would be from this first phase. And then from there, depending on what that amount looks like for construction, we would look to then future phase that as well. So it could be phase one. First priority is the underpass. We want to address the underpass. Along with the underpass, we were looking to maybe enhance that area, make it more inviting with public art, and really drive people to use that space. So it's more of an invitation to come onto the pier. So that could be phase one. I think engineering would have no issue with that because that is, I think, a huge priority. And then phase two, we could look at how we can then fold in the plaza expansion, if you will, to push back that wall, remove some of the landscape, more of those cosmetic things that we're talking about. But again, that's dependent on the total dollar value that we find out from this first phase, if that makes more sense. Does that answer your question, Amanda? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, it does. I mean, to me, it just priority is the underpass.
Sure.
And we send videos online how during the rains, how flooded it gets. And it's amazing, the amount of water flow that goes in there. And if you're promoting people to go under that underpass, well, you're promoting basically being, taken away by the water, and that's a concern.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a question before my comments is, why hasn't this gone to DMT prior to coming to design review?
So this is just an in-concept review for us at this point, so we're soliciting information. So we don't have any technical information yet to present to DMT. So typically at DMT, they're looking at plans and analyzing. We don't have any of that yet. This is just a higher level.
Because what I read was from design review, then it goes to city council. It seems to me that it would go to engineering for all those aspects before it even comes to design review, and then to city council. So it seems to me the process is a little strange, from that standpoint. But if you're going to keep the underpass the same width, and you try to encourage people to go down that way, I'm down there every day. I live around the corner. And I see people, when they come in on the train, for example, 100 people or more. And these people go down that underpass. People coming in from the pier come the other way. If you're not going to increase the width of that, it's going to be a pedestrian traffic jam down there. It just needs to be widened. If you're going to do something like that, which is still in question, you need to widen the underpass because it is very narrow, and I see it all the time, traffic jams of people coming from the pier, people going to the pier. And it's a mess. It really is a mess. Now, I guess the at-grade crossing is still going to be there. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay.
I have a question about, has there been a traffic study at all being done?
Again, this is just in concept. This is, hey, we have an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Because my concern is, according to Cecilia Gallardo Daly in an email that I received today, it isn't a tsunami evacuation route. So that needs to be kind of noted that if you're talking about safety, this is a hazard zone. So, like Wayne says, if it's a narrow underpass, then we have to be concerned about safety, about being able to get out as soon as possible. So that's a concern that I have if a traffic study, because I know the OCTA monitors our roads continually on an annual basis about how traffic flows in that area. Right now, there's 2 crosswalks, and those 2 crosswalks have they're ADA compliant, which I saw them today, and they're really, great. But having one area just for ADA with a bigger crosswalk, that's a concern, and also takes away the outdoor dining. So that's another concern. But either way, there's 2 ADA areas right now, which is really beneficial, and I think that I support that because as an RN, I value safety. But again, the tsunami evacuation route, I think that's needs to be addressed in this.
So to clarify, are we reducing the access? Well, I think we're improving it, right? Or at least leaving,
There's
Same
no
way.
reduction. So
Okay.
the stairs remain the same, the at-grade crossing remains the same. At this point, the tunnel width remains the same, but that's something we can look into, what the costs of that would be. But there's no reduction in access.
and a traffic study typically is when there's some project that's going to add to the traffic. This is not going to add traffic. It's to
Correct.
improve.
Well,
And we're primarily looking, just so everybody knows, we're primarily looking at the aesthetics today. It's a cosmetic improvement that we're reviewing.
Can I
The
just,
question, let me just finish. The question for engineering is the improvement of drainage, is that tied to the budget for this project? Or is that going to go forward either way?
I believe in this project, $150,000, as part of that, we can do we can do the study and at least come up, as Sam said, with the scope of the cost, with the cost estimate for the improvement plans, storm drain improvement plans. But whether, and with, again, with even the total budget of construction, I believe we can design a sump pump, but again, it has to be studied because the sump pumps for storm drains could be very expensive. They have to pump out a lot of water and could be very expensive, $500,000, something like that. So it's so we need to study it. We need to take a look at it, see what we can do with how much something reasonable. The other thing that maybe later on Jonathan or Amber are going to get to is as part of the other phase of the Avenida Victoria improvements that we do in the tabletop idea. There are 2 catch basins in that area. We are trying to also improve those catch basins as far as taking more water, more runoff. So we can look at all those in the design phase.
Okay.
I got a question for engineering on. So are you saying that, is there surface drainage that is going into the underpass currently?
Yes, yeah, because
So the majority of that can be solved with just grading and flat work?
well, that is a lot of this area is a low flow to a large watershed on the upstream side. So a lot of the storm drain of flood control improvements upstream of here, which basically is series of catch basins and pipes, they're all deficient. A lot of them, most of them, because they were built many years ago, a long time ago. So that's why to have a very comprehensive solution for the drainage down here, we need to spend a lot of money. And unfortunately, the city's storm drain budget, it's not, we're suffering of not having adequate budget funding for the storm drain improvement. So, but answer to your question, quick answer is yes, the water, the runoff can be collected upstream of here, but that requires a lot of enhancing the storm drain system, including enlarging catch basins and installing larger pipes and all that.
The only reason I'd said that was basically talking sump pumps is just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Right.
Yeah, it's I agree, but it will help a lot. I mean, it would help a little bit, not a lot.
And I'll say that, as part of our due diligence on our side too, we were looking at grant funding. And so we've been made aware of a couple resources, which is what we also try to do for the city too, is to go out and find grants, because we know that the city cannot pay and afford to have all of these costs. But again, with our goal of trying to reduce maintenance in the long term for the city, we think that those grants, particularly the WQMP grants and the water quality requirements, would go a long way, and this would be a great project for those also.
Okay. So you mentioned there's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's public.
No.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify what we're looking at here today. You mentioned that there were 3 goals, or there were 6 goals, and 3 of them are incorporated in this project.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to a point here. So this drainage thing is a big concern, obviously. And I think that the overall concern is that, here's a project that funds are being raised for this project, and there's different aspects to it. And somehow that funding that's raised is going to be spent on other things and potentially take away from funding for this drainage issue. Can you clarify that that's maybe not the case? That
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'll comment on that. Especially on the grant side of things, a lot of the grants that are out there require some level of design engineering to have already occurred. So that's also part of why we're here today. Like, if we don't start this process, then we can't even apply for a lot of those grants. And so this starts to open up that avenue. And it's always been the intent to lead with the accessibility of the underpass, so improving the drainage as a component of any grant. And so again, I think that would be really what would put us in a position to be competitive for a grant. It's not the aesthetics that would make us competitive, but at the same time, if we're going to be doing work in this area, it makes sense for us to look at it holistically. And when we approach that grant, and if we apply for CDP to be doing work in this area to do maintenance, for all those elements to be considered at the same time. But yes, I think, from the conversations that have been had, the leading area of importance has always been understood that improving the drainage, improving the accessibility, making it a safe space to go through is number one. And then while we're at it, let's try to make things more accessible, interesting, attractive for the community as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Can we get to something else other than the drainage?
Can I ask my question? You had a question.
I think
No, I was banking on what someone else said. But what I don't understand is how this project, adding this public plaza space, is going to help the drainage. That's what I did not understand in the conversation that was being had. It doesn't seem connected to it. It just seems like it's an extra want from Pure Pride that we think this is a better entrance, or we want to add this plaza. And that's what I think everyone here is trying to understand, is how this affects the drainage, because we know in major storms we have to pump it out. But that's in a major storm when everything fails, we have to do that. But we also have been told that the underpass, it was going to be improved, and it's kind of not going to be improved. It's still going to stay there and be the same. So is it just, this infrastructure that you want to put in is an extra ask, this plaza space, and not, it's all mentioned, all of those things, but it doesn't really have anything to do with it. Because I don't understand how all that concrete helps the water not go down the underpass. That's what I'm trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
it's hard to tell by the picture that we had. It's really hard.
So I guess the way I would answer that question for everybody is that it's not an idea Pure Pride had. So I think a lot of people think like Pure Pride has this thing that they want to do. But what we do, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down so I don't want to make anyone sick. But what we do is we take a survey from the community and we ask questions and say, what is it that you would like to see done in Pure Pride? And I apologize for how tiny this is. You never know what it's really going to look like once you come in here from your screen. But this was the results of the survey that was done. And this is all on Pure Pride's website. So we really take direction from those that participate in the survey. So the number one thing, just like many of us in the room, that came up is underpass drainage and lighting. And so we took that as, okay, that's the main one. But we also noticed that were other things in here that had to do with that same vicinity and area, which is where the other items came from on there. So Avenida Victoria landscaping, as well as underpass art. So you see all three of those. But as Jonathan mentioned, and even in our list of goals that was previously up there, the number one is improving the underpass. Now, we did also see an opportunity with the, with that landscaping, because we have landscaping that tends to get overgrown and isn't necessarily always well maintained and tends to block views of that of the pier that goes against, enhancing that visitor serving and having that view thoroughfare. We thought, well, in order to improve that, a great way would be to return it back to what a reflection of what it originally was designed as, basically. And that's also a part of Pier Pride's mission, is to embrace the historical integrity of that pier. So we saw this as an opportunity to not only help facilitate the trolley traffic that's down there and enhance people's enjoyment and opportunity to enjoy that pier. So that's why that was also included in there too.
I'm just curious why, the pier was very different back then, and, why that was even there and the steps to it.
Mhm.
But we obviously transferred out of it and went away from that.
Mhm.
So why are we running back to it when the pier is essentially, the bowl is getting pretty filled up, and everyone's dispersed around, and that's why the pier bowl kind of works. Is everyone's around everywhere. If you add something to the center right there, you said they'll flock to it. They're going to. All the skateboarders are going to go there because it's this great flat space. But all the people standing there are going to block anyone that's on the other side. They're going to be looking at walls of people now because we've concentrated them into the space where now we have this really nice, we do have landscaping. People find the stairs, so they're not in, that they can't find them because they do. But we have this nice lawn with benches, and we've got people up there. We've got people at Parque Del Mar, and it's kind of spread out, and that's kind of why it works, I think. And what my concern is one central big location is what is that going to do to all of that? Is how is it all going to work? And when I look at this, I see the drainage and the lighting. People are like, yeah, do that. And paint the pier, because the pier looks really bad.
It does.
It was painted with
Yeah.
paint, but it has not happened again. And my idea of what Pier Pride was going to help us do was help us with maintenance, because of all the costs that we had for that. But I'm not really sure Pier Pride, I tried to find out before I got here. I wanted to get the Pier Pride contract, because you can't get it online. And I've been trying since Monday and I couldn't get it. I'm not sure Pier Pride should even be looking at the streetscape and that infrastructure on my own. And that's one thing that I had to do, is I had to make sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing and following the guidelines and protocols and all that. So I'm not sure that this is a Pier Pride thing that we should be doing. It's a lot of infrastructure. It's big. It's a lot of concrete. And I don't know if that's what the people in San Clemente envision. I looked at Huntington Beach, their pier, and they've done that right off PCH. You can go right into the pier, drive in, and all that. We can do that. We've accomplished that, but it's a little bit of around the corner to that. People just go straight in. And my memory of the pandemic with all of the protests that we had, we were tag team with Huntington Beach Pier and our pier.
Oh, yes.
We were tag team back and forth, back and forth. Huntington Beach got more people because they could actually fit them in because they have these big concrete spaces. Where our city, they had to kind of figure out where they were going to go and where they were going to hang out. Wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But, my thing is I have to be shown that Pier Pride is even supposed to be looking at this. I'm a little disappointed that $150,000 went to this.
Yes.
Because the council voted 5-0 last year when I was on it to do a bike ramp project for Riviera that was very, very necessary, that we thought might cost up to $200,000. It didn't make it into the budget. But this did, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to have done that. I'm not sure if Pier Pride's supposed to have a project every single year in that contract. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of. This seems like a lot, but like it's a lot. It's a big, big thing to be changing, and I'm not sure it makes it better. I see a lot of maybe some downsides to having it, and I don't know where the water's going to go from that flat area.
Well,
How
can
the
we
drainage is of
maybe
that.
frame the comment in a way that addresses what we're trying to do here today? I mean, you can say, which apparently you are saying, I don't like this project, I don't think it's appropriate.
It is, but I'm not sure how
Correct me if
it
I'm-
got here.
Okay, but is that really?
It's concerning to me. that-
Okay, I think we can have that comment on record, but should we continue to at least look at this project? I mean, I think we should, and that's what we're here to do. And one comment is, it seems like, I'm just trying to clarify, facilitate here. It seems like it's big enough and it works the way it is what you're saying. And what we're doing is reducing.
I think we are. We're
The-
reducing the capacity of the Pier Bowl area to function in many different functions, including Battle of the Paddle, Ocean Festival, different things like that. Right now, it works. The little grass area that we have that I think this would take over.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they have all of their paddle boards and they're getting all picked up, they put them there.
Exactly.
Families put all their stuff there, and it all works where we all can cohabitate. We can make it to the fishermen. We can do all this stuff. Now you want to gravitate it to one area, and I'm not sure that's a good thing for the Pier.
That's a good question.
That's
Is that really what's happening here?
So if I could jump in with that,
Yeah, I
because
think
no, I
that's
think
the
we're getting derailed a little bit. We're not proposing to take out the grass area, so we could always bring up an aerial. But here is the grass area next to them where we have the families that congregate. So this portion that we're talking about modifying is where you have an indention of landscaping that's on a sloped area. So all it does is serve as sloped landscaping in that area. So what we're doing is actually capturing an area that's being used solely for shrubs and trees that are not maintained and turning it into a viewing platform for individuals in that area. Again, I'm happy to bring up photographs, but our goal is to not disturb or take out any of the landscaping, which you can see here overlaid in that area. This is the area that we're talking about.
But that
What is the
landscaping
size?
provides shade, it provides shade, that landscaping.
We can't tell how big it is.
Maybe it'd be helpful to look at
Well,
the
the
area.
stairs haven't moved.
Yeah.
So all of that 3, it's just the area from 3 to the street.
Can I just ask
3 is the
one
stairs.
question?
3 is the stairs,
Yeah, go ahead.
and those are remaining, and actually that wall remains.
Are you
And it's just
proposing to
the
have
planter that's in front of
the
that.
outdoor dining from Katarina is gone because.
We are not proposing to do anything on that side of the street. This is
I
solely
thought the
in
sidewalk
front.
was gonna go right into.
Crosswalk.
It does.
So that's something that we'll work with city staff. If it doesn't work out, we're not looking to change anything there. This was a concept by Redmond Schwartz. But again, all of that will be looked at as part of that in partnership
Right.
with the city, because we're not looking to remove any of that.
Well, the big crosswalk does take
Right,
over that
yeah.
outdoor dining. And the two that are existing right now work well, and they are ADA accessible. The one does take out the outdoor dining.
I'll go ahead and comment on that. That's going to be a separate project. However, the concept in front would actually expand the area available for outdoor dining. So all of the on-street outdoor dining is going to be going away at the end of this year, but there's a CIP also funded for improvements to this street. Part of why this item's also here now, and that item is somewhat tabled, is again, it's better to plan twice and cut once. And so that was something that also came up in those discussions of taking a look at the crosswalk. While there are going to be, while there is work occurring in the street area to expand this sidewalk, it made sense for us to also take a look at, is there an interest in a table? And that's something that there was an overlap here with this potential project. Again, this one potential. And so evaluating the sense of design, does it make sense for that to be an element that's considered? What are the follow-ups of that, such as drainage, that have to be included? But starting at the high level, what's a good design element is what we're looking at today. And so the short answer is no, it's not going to disrupt or remove area for outdoor dining.
It means there will be a crosswalk going right into it. It will.
No, it won't disrupt outdoor dining.
You have two now. If you scroll down
Yeah.
a little bit, and in that picture, in that diagram, you have only one, not two. Just scroll down, if you could just scroll down a little bit. Where's the second one?
The other way.
The other way.
Sorry. You have two right there. But in your conceptual plans, you only have one, which is a wide one. So you're eliminating that one as well?
No, again, we're not planning on eliminating anything right now. We're just looking at how potentially could this project work in the area. If those need to stay, if there is other ADA that could accomplish the same thing or improve it, and great, but no, we're not anticipating making anything less. It was just how the rendering was done as far as an in-concept idea. It doesn't mean it'll come out in the wash once we actually do the engineering.
I want to comment on two things, Kathy, that you mentioned, and I'm sorry, I did get the Pure Pride agreement to you. It was just a little bit ago, so you have it now. But this is within the scope of the Pure Pride agreement. Pure Pride has zones within their agreement that gives them the pier, the base of pier, the Avenida Victoria area, including the Acre crossing and the underpass. So this is within the scope of their agreement for consideration for projects. And then you mentioned the Riviera Bike Rack project. We are working on that. It is funded. Maintenance is managing it, and they're going to roll something out in the next probably 6 months or so.
How is that funded? It wasn't listed as an item.
I believe it's under major maintenance.
Okay, in an
That's the
attempt
side.
to kind of reel everything back in here so that we can focus on what we're trying to do here today, why don't we, maybe go around the room, make a comment. This is not a project that's been defined yet. So I think, what we're looking to do is have kind of a forum, which we are. Public comment, us on the design review subcommittee, we're going to have an open discussion about the project. Obviously, there's budget concerns, there's priority concerns. There's a lot of issues that have already been brought up. Those are on record, but this is meant to be an informal discussion, about the project. So, the way it works best, we found in the past, is if we don't have this sort of back and forth about every comment, but we get all the comments that people have on record, and then we can have a discussion. And it's not going to be, everybody else has to shut up and listen to us. It is an open forum. But I'd like to do that to try to move us along here and try to define what it is that's important and get to a point where we can at least comment on this project.
Sure.
Not necessarily whether it's a project Pure Pride should be doing. I don't think that's it's not a discussion item for today. It may be important, but I don't think so for what we're doing here. So why don't we start, Kathy, you've already commented, unless you had something you wanted to add to that.
Well,
And then we'll just go around.
okay, my other comment would be is that the Pier Bowl is a significant public space, and the legal authority over it is the specific plan. And it was adopted by, and the general plan, which was adopted by Title 7, Division 1, Chapter 3, Article 8, Section 6540 through 65457 of the California Government Code. So there's a legal authority of how we go through projects for this area. And doing it this way, through Pure Pride and staff kind of scrambling, giving little bits and pieces, and it is concerning to me that we're not doing it in the appropriate way. This involves our streetscape and drainage and things like that we need to do, but this is a lot for the city to do, and the city has a lot of things that need to be done right now, and this is taking up a lot of money and time.
Okay.
And that's all.
Thank you.
I think I've spoken a little bit about it, as far as the tsunami. The concept of this public views, and who does this public view serve? And that's a concern that I have, is that all the cement, like former Councilmember Kathy Ward said, you're bringing all these people into one central location and it's all cement. And that's not to beautify. Beautify is, putting more plants in to make it beautiful, adding more shade trees. That will be really helpful when it's really hot. But not taking away plants and shrubs that do add to the value and the beauty and protect the shade. That I am concerned regarding the underpass, because if you're going to draw people into going in there, it's really not ADA compliant. First of all, right? If you're going upstairs, so there's no ADA access there. So that's a big concern. And I was concerned about the murals too, that there is already the murals there. Hopefully they'll stay. But however, how many more murals are we going to add to that area? But I am concerned about the let's see, the trees, the trolley, they mentioned the trolley stop. Well, my concern is if you're gonna have the trolley stop, it's gonna go right into that, it's gonna stop right in that raised crosswalk, and that's a concern, because then again, you're not allowing for people with ADA access to cross that area. So you might wanna have the trolley go up a little higher where that parking space is up the area and stop up there, and then those who want ADA access could, maybe bring it down over here. But to me, it just, this whole plan is just, it doesn't really work well. And I think that having something, looking into the contract, I think that would be wise in the future, because it does take on to the crosswalk, it does take on to parking, not parking, but traffic flow. And that's something that shouldn't even be in that purview. That should be within the traffic engineers and all that. And that's a whole different thing regarding Pure Pride. So I just think the project doesn't improve connectivity, and it just there's no sense. There's really not a good element there. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Josie. I own Katarina's. I live directly into the pier. I'd like to say, first of all, I think that view right now is quite beautiful. We have plants, we have shrubs. I have an excellent view of the pier, regardless of what anybody says. I just stand there and look out, and then I know how busy I'm going to be in the afternoon or evening. If the pier is packed, we're going to be busy. So I mean, the view is there. I think it's quite beautiful down there. We're attracting people from all over the world. I don't understand what the need for change is. I am very concerned about the water and down below. I'd like to comment on Wayne's comment that if we have 100 people get off the train, that's not true. I counted this last weekend on Saturday, 482 people got off the first train, and over 500 got off the second train.
Wow.
I have never seen less than 300 get off that train. So there is that whole issue. And they do make it to the pier quite easily. They go, I watch them, they go down, they come across the crosswalk to us, to the other restaurants. I'm down there all the time. That's gonna be skateboard heaven. I 99% guarantee you. I know it goes out in the evening down there with these kids. They're gonna love it. My other huge concern is concrete. The city has a difficult time now paying to get our sidewalks cleaned. If you went down there right now, I don't think you'd like the looks of them.
Exactly.
Really filthy. And they're red. I can't imagine what concrete's gonna look like in 3 weeks after this opens. It's gonna be filthy. I don't know who's gonna clean it. And concrete's hot. The sand gets hot, the kids can go in the ocean and cool off, or they have umbrellas. The kids are barefoot all the time, and teenagers are barefoot, and I would say 20 to 30% of the adults that walk in our store are barefoot. And concrete is hot, you're taking away the green to mitigate some of the heat.
Exactly.
I mean, these are just common sense concerns.
Absolutely.
I agree with everything everybody in front of me has said. I guess that's it. Oh, and of course, I don't understand how you can have a crosswalk go right into my tables, but that's a whole different issue.
It's true.
Okay, Larry?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, some of the same concerns have already been raised. The crosswalk going right in, taking out Josie's seats. I'm concerned about the people who will be walking across the street with their gelatos and possibly spilling them. Big South Swell ice cream, on Avenue Del Mar, what a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an attractive nuisance for the homeless, for the beggars, for the buskers, the seagulls. I don't see that huge area being a real big benefit. Why don't we just go ahead and reduce the landscaping right now? Not too much, so we'll leave some for you. Just see if it looks better. Incorporating the pier planking over on the other side, they were talking about taking out some of the asphalt, putting in planking to kind of continue the look of the pier. That might work. You have to be very careful and making sure that it's right at grade. You don't want to make a tripping hazard or wheelchair tipping over. The art, I like the idea of adding some art. It's the right art. We've all got our own taste. Personally, I think what's on Ave Del Mar is kind of a disaster. Very brassy and gaudy.
Yeah.
I hope we use some very tasteful art. That's my opinion. The ADA accessibility, an issue that I haven't heard raised. Why can't we put a ramp? Well, right at the top left, right by where the arm comes down, what's the difference in grade between there and the bottom of the tunnel? Engineers happen to know off the top of their head? I bet we could put a ramp, the same thing on the other side of the track, to make that accessible. Because walking across the tracks, maybe it is ADA legal right now, but I find it pretty scary. And so it would be nice to have a real ramp. That's about it.
Thank you. Eileen?
I'm Eileen Kawas, I'm from Pier Pride. Amber is doing a great job speaking for us. I just want to say how much we appreciate the community comments and involvement, and that's why we're here to listen.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, I'm Fair Pride and former planning commissioner with Cassie. I think the project has a lot of merit. I think it creates a gathering point. I don't think we're putting too much concrete in. I thought we envisioned Spanish going to tile in that one area for a gathering point. The tunnel is a very tough nut to crack, having been on Derail, a trail, and some of the other issues. You want to widen that tunnel, you got to go to the railroad to get permission. You get a lot. You just triggered a huge amount of engineering requirements. You know, we got Zach in the back here from engineering. Do you want to touch that tunnel? You're talking big dollars to make that happen. That's why we try to keep it in the scope. To try to that's where the extra platform will allow people to queue before they go down. And you're right, when they get off, we're planning on people, 300 or 400 people get off that train during the summer. But we've got, that's what made that's what made the passion, the numbers count work to make the cost benefit analysis work. So we even got 250,000 cubic yards of sand was that train. But that's only in the summer. We had another 9 months. You got to work through the whole pier issue. The drainage is an issue, but Amir is correct. There's a lot of stuff underground. The engineers, Zach's in the back. He owns what you don't see. It goes all the way up into the pier bowl. It's been there for almost 100 years, which is that's why they need to scope it out in phase 2. So we're starting the journey here. I think the project's got merit as Amber has presented it. We've got a lot of people here that, you know, that the glass is half empty, and that I welcome their inputs and their comments. Kathy, the part we tried on the maintenance of the pier, we painted it. We painted all that stuff. It peeled off in 2 years. Why? And Randy will tell you, because the wood is saturated with water, so it peeled off. We've used the same paint they use on the USS Midway. It was $50 a gallon, and it lasted for 3 years. We went back to the city manager, said, well, let's change the material, and we'll pay for that, called use Trek. The city manager at the time, who's since left, was concerned the Coastal Commission wouldn't approve it, even though the Cayugas Pier has Trek on the board. If you wanted to change the material on the railing out there, we'd step up to the plate. But we stepped back from that in conjunction with city maintenance, because we were just throwing good money after bad, and that's why we stepped back from that afterwards. So, you know, come up with use your bully pulpit and come in and get a material change, and we'll be right there with you.
That's why we painted it every couple of years.
Huh?
We kept painting it every couple of years.
I know, and it kept peeling off because the water, it's wood and it's water saturated. Ask your maintenance manager down there, he'll tell you the same thing. He's been at it for a few hundred years. So I think the project's got merit. I think we got to take some of these inputs and look at it. But I think we're trying to get back into the system. It's consistent with, I think, the Pier Bowl specific plan. I was on the dais with this guy when we approved it going forward, so I think we can take all the inputs and round it out and go and make it better. Thank you for your inputs. Thank you.
Wait,
But as you know, anything in the Pier Bowl, whether it's Pasadena Court or the pier, is a hot topic, as you can well imagine. Subcommittee is a family-oriented town. This is a very urban design. And let me share with you why. Look at Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach has an area very similar at the beginning of their pier. And what do they have there? They have all sorts of bongo drums. They have free speech. They have everything in that one area. 6 weeks ago, the Fisherman's, Catarina's, the Cove, the Timeshare Cove, and myself met with the city manager. We met with the sheriff's department because we had, and down at the pier, a very sensitive issue. And that was a free speech from a Jesus group, political groups that had microphones and amplifiers. This design is perfect for those type of activities, believe me. Just go to Huntington Beach. It's a very urban design, very urban design. If you're going to create more of a safety issue and an issue for pedestrians to get to the pier, you have to widen the underpass. There's no doubt about that. You have to do that. You have to widen it. This whole area there is going to be a great place for homeless. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to be a great place for homeless, and with benches and that type of thing. If you want to see the pier, you can take down one of the bushes that's on the left-hand side. The one on the right's already gone because the homeless tore it down.
He did.
Josie witnessed that. Take the other down, and you can see the pier perfectly from that area. There's just way too much concrete. There's not enough landscaping. It's an urban design. I've said that before. To me, I thought Pier Pride was there to maintain the pier.
Yes.
Before Pier Pride came along, the city tried their best to paint the pier every so often. We had, from 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines down there to paint the pier once, and there were like 40 guys. They scraped it, they primed it, they painted it, and it was all done within like 4 to 5 hours. They had a lot of guys to do that down there. But that pier needs to be maintained and it needs to be painted. This design needs to go back to the drawing table, believe me. It needs to go back because it's just not something that is going to find, I think, a lot of community acceptance, as you can see here in the room right now. Thank you.
My name is Susan Ambrose. I'm a commissioner on Beaches, Parks, and Recreation, formerly the chair of the Coastal Advisory Committee. I am here because I'm very concerned about the ecosystem and the ecology down at the pier, with a greater amount of people descending into that area, particularly on cement. When I go down and I take the trolley probably a couple days a week, when I swim at Ole Hansen or whatever I do, and I see people trying to get off the trolley and on the trolley. Of course, now the drivers have figured that out. We'll let everybody off first and then everybody on. But still, that whole sidewalk from the drive-in, if you had a vehicle, to the end of that crosswalk, the further north, or further south, I'm sorry, that one, that's clustered with people. I mean, and then they're walking across those walkways. Those are clustered with people, literally. And I see it all the time. I'm happy about we're getting money in because our job is to provide our city with the vitality, the economic vitality that we need to continue on and on and on, and protecting our businesses and our residents who have invested in our businesses. But when you look at the ecology about that, we have to be careful if you're going to use cement that it should be colored. It should be just light gray that gets more heat into it. And Zach can educate me more if you want to. But I know too that the California Coastal Commission will be looking very carefully at this. So when you're talking about feet and especially drainage and things of that nature, they are looking for more places that the public can access. Yes, and that's a good thing, but it has to be in the eye of public safety. So that's what I wanted to bring to you, and the other question I had was already answered by Amber. The survey took place in 22-23, and then I was wanting to know the input from other people to sharpen the project right now. I don't know if you have any business, if you've gone to the chamber, if you want to invite the chamber, go to the chamber and talk to them. What do they think about this business setup or the way that you've got it planned now? I think those kinds of input from other people in the business world would also be helpful, as well as you might even want to do a town hall meeting if you want to get more input from community members. And believe me, only people who care about it will come and talk to you, but those will be the key people who can give you some sharp insight. That's just my 2 cents worth from the coastal point of view of beaches, parks and recreation, etc. And I know that Don would probably reiterate some of those things that I just said.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mark from the Fisherman's Restaurant. And I've worked there many years, going on 40. So I have a lot of experience as far as what I've seen happen in that tunnel area. Lots of vagrants there, of course, as we know, lots of music playing, and a lot of trash. And, we've had many a customer complain about, feeling intimidated walking through the tunnel because, as we've all brought up, it's really confined. So it's small. You get 20, 30 people down there, there's not a lot of room. So that would be a concern. The other concern would be, of course, now we're talking money, it's going to need cameras down there because of the potential of somebody getting harassed down there. So that would be another cost. And as far as if it would work or not, I have my doubts. I'm open-minded, but just from past experience, when they're working on the train. And when they're working on the pier, and they derail everybody down the tunnel, it's really, like I mentioned before, it's really confined down there. And people, they're looking around wondering where to go. So they want to go across the railroad track. So, I have my doubts. And then will this project affect the Fisherman's Galley at all as far as their outdoor seating?
No, it wouldn't propose to, no.
Okay, so my major concern would be just extra costs that would have to be there and people's safety, so something to consider.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your comments, for your input. That, though this is an informal meeting, that all goes on the record, so we'll be able to review that. Before we start in on our discussion, Amber, maybe you can just kind of reiterate what's the goal, the primary goal, sort of overarching for this project, given that Pier Pride's role in the past has been primarily maintenance and trying to attract people to the pier area.
So so everyone can see it up here. So this is in order of, what we have for our goals is to solve the underpass problems for safe pedestrian access, expanding the plaza area for pedestrian ease and to ease that pinch point and restore iconic views of the pier now masked by landscaping. So those really are the goals. I don't want to be disingenuous and tell people that we're here to solve the drainage problem. That is not what Pier Pride is here to do by any stretch. What we're here to do is help facilitate the city in order to do that. So just that's not our role as a volunteer organization. It is just to empower the city in order to do their job and to help facilitate that. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Okay, and so you were given some direction by city council to proceed with this project. Okay, and so this consultant has been engaged pro bono, but they've done work in the city. And so it's been it's their effort primarily to address these concerns, and this is their very preliminary conceptual design for what they think addresses these primary issues and these goals, right?
They came up with an idea to help, with those three things that we talked about, and yes, created this in concept design, with knowing that there would need to be plans that would be developed by an engineer. They're not an engineering firm. So that's where that money comes in order to do the design work that Amir was discussing.
Okay, and so typically, firms brought in, there's some sort of budget discussion for a project like this. I mean, you put it together to try to develop a budget, I get that, but there's also some limitations that are usually injected in terms of, we can't tear up the entire space and remake it. So it's really and I just want to clarify, although those are the goals, the idea of expanding the tunnel and, a lot of these other things, which are probably good ideas, may not be feasible within the scope and the potential budget. This project's going to occur over several years, right? I mean, that's what we've talked about. So the idea, this is very preliminary, and there's people that are going to be against doing anything, no matter where it is, especially at the pier. So we want to be as helpful as we can with the design review subcommittee. This is a public forum here. So we've gotten to hear, I don't know, even if we didn't say anything, you've got some good input, I would think.
Yeah, very much so.
So, do you guys feel like, we've heard enough that we can, and looked at what they're proposing, that we can make some constructive comments and maybe give them some direction?
I think so.
Moving forward? Okay, well, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, when the Pier Pride is not a developer, they're here to work with the city to assist the city in getting things improved and maintained, correct?
Yes.
So they're not trying to strong arm a project in or do something contrary to what the city wants. They're here to expedite it and help finance it when possible. I do believe widening the tunnel is impractical. I think when you see the shoring and all that would be required to hold that thing up while they're widening it with the train tracks is just, it ain't gonna happen. I don't see that this project, as proposed at this time, creates any additional load on that tunnel from what it has now. Same amount of trains, same amount of people coming in, same size parking lot. It is what it is, and that's not going to change. It's going to have the same load. Everybody's worried about the drainage and all, but nothing can be done without improving the drainage. Engineering won't allow any work to be done that's contrary to any codes or pollution standards or whatnot. Just getting it graded where everything drains away from the tunnel would be wonderful. I do have one concern, and this is the city's issue, is there's no real master plan for, even though we've got a specific plan for that area, of improving that area. There's no sense of arrival. The arrival is the parking lot or the train station. That's it. When you go down there, anything that can be done to improve the sense of arrival to the Pier Bowl is important, and the pier is one of them. I'd love to see the ADA. I'm not even sure that that is true ADA access across the tracks and all. We call it that, but I don't think if you did a real inventory of that, it meets all the standards necessary. And a ramp, I don't think, what is it, 1 in 12? For an ADA ramp, you'd be switching back
I think
10
it's
times to,
115 without Andrew.
yeah, 10 times to be able to do a ramp. So the tunnel will never be an ADA access.
150 feet probably.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's off the mark. So kind of what I think is necessary, and I don't know if Pure Pride will want to take it on or if the city can find a means to do it, would we expand this area so we can see what could be happening from the parking lot in as well as this area, and look at them both as a cohesive solution, because when you come down, it is so over landscaped. It is not, no rhyme or reason, it's just busy. It's just,
It almost seems like
there's no sense of,
it's just sort of evolved without any planning at all.
yeah, it's kind of free form, which is what it is. So I don't know, Jonathan, how we do that to get somebody to just look at it. I have to give Amber's husband credit when he used to get the college groups in with classes, but this would have been a perfect area for them to do a summer seminar on and take a look at the whole area in general as far as the arrival from the parking lot and all those pedestrians, because they won't come to the tunnel. They're going to go straight across the railroad track as they do now. The train people, they get off. Tunnel's probably the best route to go. And I do want to give Pure Pride credit for what they've done here. It's not as big an area as you might think. The major landscaping is just really in front of the stairways. The raised pad is an option, but not necessarily something that needs to be a deal breaker. I have a personal concern about trying to, in theory, it's kind of nice to think of the decking coming down from the pier, but I don't think it's practical. We're trying to recess up the boards in the hard surface and getting that to drain and trying to maintain it. It just seems like a lot of trouble.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How would you feel about a stamped concrete if it wasn't to be like a wood type material?
Oh, I think a textured material. I'm not going to say concrete because it could be pavers.
Sure.
Anything, but a hard surface of some kind that designates that, absolutely. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
I just had a question, because I attended the Beaches Parks and Recreation Committee, and I thought it was a painted, painted, not that it would, the pier would be extended down, no planking. So that's where I'm kind of confused. I thought it was just, just painted.
I think they threw out the concept of possibly having the wood continue down as.
We agree that the wood won't work.
Yeah.
We're on the same page as that.
I just see
The
it.
wood won't
It
work.
can be stamped.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
look like
it could be
Stamp.
something, I'm sure,
Yeah.
somebody with a creative mind can come up with something to designate that, hey, the pier's pointing this way and this is where it goes, and that's cool, because that asphalt is terrible.
Well, so, yeah, and I agree. I mean, it seems like the focus of this project is how can we sort of enhance this space and make it brighter, make it more sort of user-friendly? It's not that now. I mean, I get that it's spread out so that people can, and I want to hear what you have to say too, of course, but so that people can have options about how they get across there. But there's no sort of focal element here. And I'm not even sure that what's proposed now has that. I mean, I like the idea of there's sort of a historic precedent of being able, to see the pier, but I think that can be accomplished by just replacing and changing the landscape. I mean, you have these hedges that are overgrown and have been allowed to extend into a lot of this area that should be trimmed. I understand there's concerns about, vagrants or homeless or whatever, making more opportunities for them, and or skateboarders. But I think you can do that with low-level landscape, that you can still see what's going on at the pier. And it will still prevent people from camping or whatever. I think lighting is going to be huge because even though it's primarily during the day, because of the restaurant lot, there's a lot of people that are there at night. And again, I think with lighting, we can focus on that area so that it becomes kind of a beacon. There's an opportunity for that with the project. I'm not sure exactly how that gets accomplished. In terms of the project and the area, as Bart said, it's not a big area. There doesn't seem to be any cohesiveness between the two sides, sort of the nodes. If you're parking up Victoria as you go up, or if you're parking in the parking lot and you're coming in there's nothing that really connects those spaces. It feels like it is. That's why I think it's kind of a free-for-all right there. Is that bad? No. I mean, it's kind of cool, actually. You see, every walk of life at every dog, you can imagine, or not dogs, but
them too.
Yeah. So to me, we have an opportunity to make this a focus, I think, and so that it's more of an aesthetic improvement instead of trying to solve these problems. Although obviously, this drainage thing needs to be considered. As far as ADA, I don't think accessibility. I don't think you're going to have a lot of opportunities with this to create better accessibility. And what I'm hearing is you're not reducing it, right? You're maintaining what's there. And obviously this is an aesthetic discussion more than an engineering or functional discussion, although we have to take that into consideration. So you're trying to get the most bang for your buck. It seems to me to feel like a kind of a two-dimensional project right now. So it's a lot of flat work, which, there's hills, there's topo out there, so you do see that. But again, it would be nice to have some vertical improvements out there that don't take away from the space. And maybe that's, you talked, I think, at one point about this being an intermodal. We got bikes coming in, you have people walking in here, you got people coming in on the train, parking and walking in. So maybe there's ways to direct people somehow and use the landscape and stuff like that to do it in a sort of a more natural way. I think that in terms of the historic nature of the pier, it would be nice to we saw that image in the beginning, to really look at that and, at least in concept, try and incorporate it, somehow in a stronger way. And maybe that's this beacon that we're talking about. I don't know what that is. I'm sure Cameron's going to be talking about a statue or something. But I think it's a limited scope thing that we're looking at here. So I think we need to understand that and look at our sort of the most, like I said, the most bang for our buck is going to be with landscape, lighting, creating a hierarchy so there's a real focal element here. That would be my primary.
Don't forget the cameras, this gentleman recommended as well.
Cameras are great. Yeah. But I think we're talking about just the presentation of this area and how it can be something more special It's already a cool place. Everybody agrees with that. But it certainly can be enhanced. Cameron, what do you got for us?
I think this is a complicated meeting because to me there's too many moving parts, and that's the problem. We're going to try and simplify it here, but we're going to miss the mark because we're not structured for that. We're structured for design review, but we have mechanical issues here. We have, water flow issues here. We have public safety issues here. It's too complicated, and I think, respectfully, there needs to be a step back on this whole thing. This, to me, screams unintended consequences. Stepping back. This is probably the most important part of town. And just think of something else that's better or more important than the pier. I can't. So we ought not rush in with a hammer looking for nails. We ought to be stepping back. We do not have a master plan. We have a specific plan for the Pier Bowl area, but we do not have a master plan for this specific segment. We don't know what the focus should be. Unfortunately, the focus seems to be the tunnel. That probably is the wrong focus. We could change that focus, but we need to have a conversation about that focus, right? That's the design element of this that's missing. What's the focus? What's the focal point? If we had a large, mural or art sculpture that people, went for their pictures and that became the focal point, great. That's a design that accomplishes that. Putting in a plaza to do that, that's the unintended consequence mistake. When you put in a plaza, you are inviting different uses. You're not inviting people to focus a focal point on a beach experience. You're asking the community to assemble. That's different. That's the unintended consequence mistake. So that's why this is a complicated thing. We need to take a step back, ask ourselves what we're really trying to do, and not make the big mistake. And to me, a plaza is the big mistake in this design. So I don't know that we should sit here and carve it up. Let's get rid of this, add this. That, I think, is just kind of, doing it from the dais. We shouldn't be doing that. I think it's more of a, okay, let's refine kind of what we're trying to do here, and to me, because we don't have that master plan, sometimes it's a little bit easier bite-sized pieces. Let's do some incremental improvements, right? And get some wins. So that to me could be, like your objective, solve the problem with the underpass. Well, that to me is, complicated because you're talking about the drainage. This is the bottom of a funnel. This is the bottom of the U. This is the bottom of the bowl. It's all the problems are upstream, and so that's going to require a significant analysis from engineers to look at all the catch basins, all the sprinkling, all of that, and go, okay, it's really going to be 3 projects or 4 projects or 5 projects to solve that. Great, let's get that on its own. Let's get engineering working on that. Okay, we don't want draining into the bottom of the pier, bowl, and flooding the tunnel and all the rest. We don't want, Victoria flooded. So let's set that off to the engineers and go, you need to solve that. The whole idea of reorienting the streetscape, I've talked about the plaza, so I'm kind of moving to this cable concept. That to me is another situation where the disciplines are not, well, what's the focal point of this beach experience? Now we're talking about safe crossing of the street that currently is, again, probably the magnet of town where everybody's congregating for different uses. You have people who are there for a quick beverage on a walk. You have people there for a dining experience. You have people there for the hotel experience, or they're in their condo or their B&B. You've got beachgoers, the train. You've got people walking their dogs. There's a lot of different things. And I think that what Kathy said at the very beginning was so really, really insightful in that what makes this work is that we are dispersing the different kinds of uses kind of on the sides of the U. And we're not making this massive funnel and saying, everybody come here. We're actually saying, you know what? Go to Park Semper Fi. You know what? Use the at-grade crossing. You know what? Go have lunch over here. Go up to this Parque Del Mar. Go up Del Mar. That's what actually makes the fact that we're a huge beach town with hundreds and hundreds of people coming here every hour off the train work. Because everyone, you know, you can find these different little areas, and we're not all sandwiched in together in some space that I think would be a mistake. So to me, retaining that is the charm of San Clemente. The charm of San Clemente is anything that keeps you in a sense of, I'm in a small town. That's why everyone uses the reference Huntington Beach or Venice Beach or Newport Beach as maybe not the positive reference. Because you don't get that feeling there. You get the feeling that you're in a big town, and you don't, all sorts of consequences flow with that. Not feeling safe, you know, people kind of, you know, acting in ways that maybe not be family oriented. These are the things that we ought to all really appreciate about the current way it's set up. So, to me, I think what I would do to try and get this a little bit looked at is reshape it enough to say, you know what, appreciate the fact that the Pier Pride is here. They're doing, you know, good work. I would say, you know, probably shrink your scope tremendously. If there really are viewing issues with the pier, which I kind of not hearing those today, and my own walking down there, okay, maybe a bush is blocking it from an angle, but you pretty much can walk a long ways and see the pier from lots of angles. It's not blocked. And to me, it's like, when people come down there, it's easy to find. If you want to go to the pier, that's easy to find your way. I don't think that's a challenge. I've already spoken again, organized plaza space. I think that should be completely removed as an objective. There is bike parking. You know, there is that there now. If you want to add a few again, I'm back to just do a few incremental things. If you want to add a new bike rack somewhere, cool. But there is bike parking, and if you want to add a little bit more, great. The trolley does go down there, lets people off, and it's becoming more used because parking is a challenge. But it does work. People queue. Now people get it. They're queuing up. People get off. The queue drains. They get on, and I don't really see that needing a massive redesign. You could slide where it loads one way, you know, a little bit up, a little bit down. Again, that's a very small incremental change. And again, I'm back to the views. I don't see that. So I'm back to, okay, could you pick one or two things you're trying to do here, right? I think, you know, what's the focal point? You know, it's not, currently it's the tunnel. And if we want to keep the tunnel as a funnel point, maybe we can make it, you know, prettier. You can paint it. We can put more artwork up. We can keep it, you know, we can bug the city. Hey, keep it clean, keep it drained. But I think that's, you either do that, or you say, you know what, we want to shift the focal point slightly off center, so it's not just, you know, the tunnel. And maybe that'll help make the tunnel more lubricated because we're not focusing people on it, and we're focusing people slightly ajar with some sculpture or some public art structure that represents our surfing culture that people can immediately relate to.
Cool.
And that becomes the focal point. Like, hey, I'll meet you at the surfer statue or something like that. And then you can do, to me, now you have a project that you can get the community behind. You can raise money for it. You can have a contest. We can that's real community civic pride, right? So my whole feeling is, rather than sit here and comment on every element of your thing and all your design and all that, because I think everyone's heart's in the right place here, would just be my advice would be, I think we've got to pull back, scale it way down, pick a focal point, work on, and let's massage that, right? And then let's get with, with the city staff that's here, hey, city staff, what do you, can you put together a plan for better drainage? Hey, city staff, can you put together a plan for better maintenance of, keeping this area clean and hosed off and making sure it doesn't flood and all that? You guys we shouldn't be trying to do this should not be trying to solve all those problems.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I think, and it seems like we're all in agreement here that, and it may even be the word plaza, because when you say plaza, you think this is not a big area. Bart said, people are not gonna have the kind of things you have going on in Huntington Beach. There's not room for people to hang out there. So really, the project is to move people across, and give them different opportunities to get through there, but create something that's more pleasing aesthetically with the focal element. I know the one thing about the pier in Huntington is they do have the Duke statue, but by the way, it's on the other side of the street, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't. It creates, and their whole thing is completely different, right? It's that whole intersection, I think. And this, we don't have an intersection really. It's just it's like a horseshoe or whatever, there's sort of a pass through. So I think, we like the project. We think it has potential, but it needs to be, it's not a plaza. It's a cosmetic enhancement of that space that gives it some identity and frees up people to continue to make these various pathways through there. Because people are going to go from point A to point B. They're not going to see, I don't think there's anything we see here in terms of potential that you're going to say, well, I'm going to loiter here.
Maybe,
right? You want to get down to the pier, you want to get down to the beach.
Yeah, maybe that sense of arrival and that new focal point isn't even near the tunnel. Maybe it's off to the side. Maybe it's up the hill, up at the top of the parking lot. Maybe
Which would be out of Pier Bowl's process. That would be the city's responsibility, which is fine.
Yeah,
because I think we should do it.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, we kind of are grinding on Pier Pride here, but we're lucky as heck to have them here to work with the city, to be doing things that, to be honest with you, the city has not been able to do and hasn't done and hasn't gotten the guidance from those in power to keep the pier up to stuff, to make improvements, and we shouldn't be saying, well, this is what they want to do. No, this is what we want to do. We're working together, and we can't forget that. They're not the opposition. We're all here to come up with something that's good for the city, and we're glad to have them help us get to that endpoint. So,
Yeah, and we
that's
understand
very
that-
important. And
that,
I think the comments are pretty good. It's not their responsibility to work on the access from the parking lot and all. That's not their Pier Pride. But I think as a city, we need to somehow, even in just bubble diagrams, whatever, it doesn't have to be concrete. This is just a conceptual first pass. So, but I think we need to take that into consideration because it may help direct what is done here.
Yeah, and I think it's time to engage this consultant. I mean, you're only going to get so much on a pro bono. This is way more than you would typically see. So, and give them this kind of input and let them sort of take it to the next level. I think we've sort of narrowed it down, the scope, right? Which is what we've intended to do, I think.
Can you put up that one, the visual that showed kind of what that was? I want to make sure all of your comments are great, but it's the visual that we saw that I think got everyone like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it encompasses what you said. Not that one. That actually shows what it would look like. That. Seeing that you're just looking
Well, that's a
at
train
nothing
station.
except the train, a bunch of concrete, a short wall, and you're looking at the
The
train.
train.
You're lower than the train, and you might have this little patch of grass there, but that looked like a plaza. I mean, it looked like big,
Isn't that the
pretty
south
big
end of
area.
the
Exactly.
train station?
And, you know.
From that view, yeah, so you're standing at the middle, you're basically
So
seeing the
everything comes to the
individuals.
plaza, yeah.
So now
So
all
this
you
is
see
primarily the
is,
sidewalk.
That's
Really.
right.
Yeah.
It's the wrong view, for one thing.
it's a very confusing
Yeah,
view.
that's a good point.
So
And
that's all I want to say is that's what,
Yeah.
looking at that,
People
I
are
don't
right.
think that,
It's very sterile, it's not beautiful,
concrete.
it's concrete.
I just had a question, a comment about the underpass. I was there earlier, as let Mr. Crandall know, Commissioner Crandall. There's already some buckling, some cracking on the underpass anyway, on the sides, and I gave him some pictures, to send this to you as well, but that really needs to be addressed. If the pier, if I wants to look at it, they should, maybe look into helping with some of the restoration of that, whether it's more maintenance of that, but it's already buckling in some areas, so that's a
It
concern
looks like
there.
it's the plaster finishes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been,
Sorry,
there's water
with the best
intrusion.
pictures, but still, it was done this morning, so.
Yeah, that's a maintenance
Yeah.
issue.
What are the next steps here, Jonathan?
So I think next steps, staff will reconvene with Pure Pride and go through all of the feedback and talk about ways that can be implemented. As Samantha began, I think that this is step one, right? Like we are looking at this potentially returning for some additional feedback from design review, and to also add on to that, I'm so glad that the public's here, and this is not something that this city has always done. Typically CIPs happen. They don't go through public discussion, and that's been something that is important to us. That's why we're here. We want to take that feedback into account before it just gets built without getting this feedback. So thank you for taking that time, and thanks for Pure Pride and initiating that conversation as well. And that's going to be our next step. So we'll reconvene and likely return for some additional steps. Beyond that, we want to have a general sense of a concept that the community and design review is supportive of before we engage our public works team to work with one of their, to get down to the nuts and bolts of the millimeters of design that the engineers would get into. So we want to get the high level right first before we start paying for the specific design.
Hopefully that was helpful.
It was incredibly helpful, and it's incredibly helpful to everyone. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day, so much time, to be here. Again, we're a small, mighty group, just trying to do the best we can, but all the feedback is incredibly helpful. We got a ton of it that I think can help make the project better, so I appreciate it, and we think all of your gentlemen's opinions too, so really, thank you for that.
Thanks for
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate you that.
Yeah.
Could we recess for 5 minutes? Could we recess for 5 minutes?
Okay, take a 5-minute recess. People are welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but
Thank you.
we don't have much more.
Thank you so much for city planning of the plazas and
Okay. Well, surprised.
I wrote down what I did. I wrote down the
Look, we're on break, Mr. Chair.
You got more?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have one more. It's a
It'll be quick.
What's the other one?
It's surfer recognition in Los Felinas, some public art.
on the sidewalk.
Sidewalk of fame kind of thing. Very good. Thank you as always.
Something like inlay?
Yeah, kind of like,
something like that.
Surveys?
kind of like
That's what they
that.
showed us yet. It was all just script.
So my family actually has a star on the wall.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who's the
The
individual?
Westmores. They go back to the 20s, makeup artists. They used to be head of every studio, absolutely, from the.
So that's a star on
We
the,
have a star.
You're welcome.
I think it's on Sunset. I know I could see, when we went to the ceremony in 2008, we could see Capitol Records down the street.
oh,
I
okay.
just don't know.
What fun.
It is fun. I always tell, Tim Brown took his kids down there one day, and I'm like, hey, go look for the star. So he said, oh, no, we did. 'Cause it
How
was
many,
just
I mean,
fun
how
to
many
do.
stars are there? There's quite a
A
few.
lot.
There's a lot. there's a
They
lot.
didn't start going up the side streets.
No, I don't think we'd have that many.
There's a little theaters that are up on the side streets.
It's funny because somebody just got theirs, and I can't remember what it is, but their wife got one like way before them, like in the 60s. And I can't remember what star it was, and I'm like, I can't believe that. But the way they do it, somebody has to sponsor you to pay for it. So Paul Newman paid for my family. Because those were his makeup artists, and it was right before he died. Like 3 days, the ceremony was like 3 days after he died. So
Wow.
I know, but it was you
Well,
can't pay
they're
for
late
it
to
yourself. That's the only
No,
rule.
it's,
You have to-
and
Has
it's
to be
done by
sponsored
the
and-
city, it's the city program.
Yeah, we have.
It is, but-
I try to remember the old mayor that used
I gotta get
to.
Oh, I loved him. We didn't have him. We had the next mayor.
Oh, okay.
He was good.
Yeah, I hit my goal. So
Okay.
He was Asian.
It takes like,
He was
Are
very,
you doing
very
the band? Is that what you're
good.
doing?
But he's now. I think it's a woman.
it's a solid hour.
Could be.
I think it's a
Plus I
woman.
have
It
to
is an
back.
hour.
But it's a
Well,
fun
if I
thing.
get everything that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how
Well,
it
I'm
works.
supposed to do it.
So it might be an issue.
You want
How
to
many
get
days
back
a
Every
into
week?
it?
day.
Oh yeah.
And I have to because.
This one was
Rice is-
hard because
Well,
what
that's
I
one
love,
guy
like what he
plays.
said, there were so many
My
different
license
points
is
to
bad
it.
shape. I can't.
that Trying to figure out.
I actually got a schedule for August.
So your son's on your left side.
Because
The
when I
whole
heard,
area
I'm
needs
side
to be
sleeping
looked as a
myself.
whole.
I like
that's
sleep-
what I
always
think.
like sleeping on
That's
the
what
right.
it's like. Just make it all.
Anyways,
You
now
know,
I'm
like
like
a pillow under it or
But when you
something.
come in and just say, "I want to do this," it's like, is that going to
Under
work
the
with the
bed.
motel? Or
So what was the
outdoor
rehab
dining?
time for
I
the-
don't know.
Well, the
No,
surgery,
I-
I
I
went
would
out
like-
of this, they came
you're
in
not-
saying,
I went out, no, I'm
this
not-
is an option.
But it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really
This
good.
is what
This is
our consultant came up with.
Just some of the
So
other
it's
stuff they've
different.
done is just
It-
went
you know,
through without
3
any-
months later, I,
just-
Well,
And
there's
this
gonna
is
be
a
the
big
murals
project.
and
That's pretty
tunnel and,
Dude, that's
but,
fast.
well, it's
you know,
because
what they've done is good.
Rehab, or,
You know, I like what they did with the
Yeah.
3 years.
I just don't like-
bathrooms and.
I don't like all
Yeah.
the names on everything.
But I just,
I don't,
They're only
I was
allowed
gonna put it
one
off
sign and
for a
there's
year.
signs.
oh,
It's just-
We would have never done
Never
that.
came from.
I'm not looking
Never
for it.
came,
I
no,
am
because it
looking
was
for
a
it.
Well,
pandemic.
Parks and Rec
You
does
don't
that.
have anything.
so I got swim in the pool. That's my
Right?
only thing. So I'm
It was,
like, was
I
in there
remember
yesterday,
when,
an hour and a half.
when we were
I
on, we
just
didn't even
like-
want to put signs on the
Hour and a half
beach.
is well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel
for
lucky.
any,
I only
like,
do it like 3
good,
times a week,
bad,
so I don't want to
You
get
know,
in a situation.
once we
like
get the
that.
general plan, and we have
Yeah,
all
the swimming,
The idea of.
like what I do now,
Yeah.
the one thing that's the
Wayfinding
least
stuff.
impact
Yes.
is paddling.
There were signs.
Like
There's
today,
so much that hasn't been
as long as you're gonna show me.
Are you on the, like this
So
paddle?
what
Stand
you
up.
guys said about.
Okay,
you
and
have a
that's what's
specific
getting to the
plan, but
shoulders?
there's-
No, that's the one thing I can do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So today I did an hour.
It's scary to have someone come in.
Standing
and
up.
that's gonna take
Yeah,
you-
stand up,
Yeah.
and you
a
haven't
pretty
thought
good
about
pace.
And
it.
then-
They do a big boost.
You don't say it perfectly.
You park on the
Bubble
end of the
diagram.
road
The
there.
baby beach?
Yeah,
Yeah, walk in there
Take it all in.
and then just
This
go
is
around
paddle
the
for
loop.
an hour, do a huge loop.
Yeah.
I usually go over to
Qualified
like
planners.
Doheny where the surfers are, and come back in this harbor, and it takes me about an hour.
Because you're just trying to
So you
remember.
go actually out the outlet?
Yeah.
I kept sending it to other pictures.
I mean, that's a
trying to
little-
think of it.
Yeah.
Depends on the day.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
today,
Because I didn't have
in the
time to go
summertime,
down
it's
there.
cheap.
Just have like
Oh, I
a
guess
big
it's-
hat on or something.
I mean,
There's trees that
Listen,
disappear.
my brother called me on my
No,
birthday.
Because you're like me with the light eyes and my doctor
It just
says,
hasn't
hey,
The
happened.
hedges and all
But
that.
yeah, no, I sense
That's city
but
maintenance.
I mean, it's side.
yeah.
But my brother called me on my birthday. It was
The last 3
actually
years.
sunny, it
it's
was clear.
been a lot of stuff.
And
Right?
I'm like, hey, what's up?
Because-
Oh, I just want to wish you happy birthday. What are you doing today? Well, I'm paddling right now.
When was your birthday?
Monument
It was
for
his-
each sign that's
Oh,
on
okay.
to the right.
He goes, you mean as we speak? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking on the phone, paddling
I
around.
would fall off.
It's,
Hopefully we'll have
it's a pretty big pool.
Couple of
Okay.
years.
It's easy.
I think that's pretty
We could do so
special.
much more.
Yeah, well, it's a great, I mean, you get, if you do it properly, you're getting your core,
Yeah.
you're getting your legs,
Okay, let's,
I mean,
even
full
your
body,
feet.
Yeah, yeah. Jeez.
All right, reconvene.
let's see, 2B here.
So we have 2B items, and are you giving us, I assume
Yes,
you're giving
I'll-
us presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Jonathan Lightfoot, Economic Development Officer with the City of San Clemente, and I also have a member of the community, Roman Kreku, who owns and operates a business in the Los Molinos Business District, and he's been a part of a group of residents that have brought forward this proposal for consideration.
Yes.
Yes. And so I'll go through a couple of slides that talk about generally what this proposal includes. So some background on the area. Los Molinos is the city's oldest industrial and business park. commonly known as the Surf Ghetto, and is home to multiple surfboard shapers as well as other local businesses such as Rainbow Sandals, etc. Within the West Pico, this area is a portion of the West Pico Corridor Specific Plan, and our general plan identifies this area as a focus area, the Los Molinos focus area, and that's shown here in this graphic, this map. That yellow area is the focus area. The specific plan area is the larger black border that also encompasses some properties on El Camino Real as well as the city's yard. And then I highlighted just some quick language from our specific plan that talks about this area. The Los Molinos focus area is a special industrial district in the community. It celebrates its history as the industrial center for the surfing industry, local arts and crafts, and as an area where business incubation is encouraged. So the proposal is to consider a Surf Stars or Surf Shaper Star program, similar to the Walk of Fame, and an example image is shown on the right. The size of these would be just over 1 foot by 1 foot with an inch thickness to it, and they would be slip-resistant porcelain tiles. The general thought is that there would be an annual event in the Los Molinos area to honor the inductees and to recognize those by placing these tiles in sidewalk areas. And they would be looking at 5 or so inductees annually going forward. The sidewalk details, this is just an example of on one of the sidewalks there in Los Molinos areas. The plaques would be placed in the sidewalks along Calle de Los Molinos, starting in front of the Los Molinos Beer Company, which is the company that Roman is associated with. And they would be flush with the existing surface and epoxied in. The work would require...
You said flush?
Flush, yes.
Okay. So not a raised, even though you said it's an inch thick, it's not raised.
Correct. Inset, so it's flush.
So there's going to be a concrete cut.
Correct. And in a lot of cases, and Roman and Zach can speak to this more, certain like portions of the sidewalk would be removed, especially if there's repairs already needed. They would remove and have that be done new. So the component coming to the city side of things, an encroachment permit would be required, so the city would still be doing the inspections. But Roman, and he can speak to this more, there's an offer of services to do the installation and repair of those sidewalks when these items get placed in. And then this is just a quick overview of some of the general plan policies. This was referenced in the report, but overall, I think that the goal of this project is consistent with what our general plan policies are for this area. There's still some details that need to be worked out. And Zach would be the lead staff person in this case to work on, what's the best process of that? How do we manage, insurance? And so some of those things are kind of outside the normal design scope. Zach would be the lead staff member working on that to make sure that we have a good plan in the future to address issues with maintenance, ownership, liability, those types of things. But for today, we'd like to get feedback on design and the plan and thoughts on that front. So that's all that I have, but I think it might be, well, actually, I'm going to, with this conclusion, as I mentioned, I think broadly, staff is supportive of the Surfer Shaper Star Recognition Program. And I had some initial questions here that I think could be just beneficial for conversation. And some of those are, is there an expected total count of stars for build out in the area? Is there a designated process for selecting honorees and who's involved in that? And related, are there definitions for eligibility, local resident or business owner? And will stars be in front of the business location or random through the area? And random may not be the right word. It may be, an intended, like, here's the boundary. And then I think the last item has already been addressed. Can the manufacturer provide verification of the slip resistance? That's something that falls again with Zach, so he'll handle that item. But those are just some initial thoughts of building out a program and thinking through the sustainability of it long term and going from there. So if we can, Roman, if you wouldn't mind just giving a little bit of background too of how this came about, where the interest is, and some of just the idea generation behind.
Well, the idea started with another person that's involved with it. We were talking one day about how the area is not necessarily recognized for what it is. It's a board building community that's been there since the 50s, maybe prior to that. So how do we honor those people? And how do we bring attention to that area? So our idea was to have a Hall of Fame for board builders and community icons or surfing industry icons. It all started in San Clemente. So we look at the first few years, it'll probably be all the people that started in the area, in Los Molinos Business District, and eventually go global. Because there's tons of towns like San Clemente in South Africa and Australia. So we created a panel of 4 people that vote on the inductees, and they're all pillars in the surfing community. And first year we're going to do 5 that have passed away and 5 that are currently with us still. Going forward, it'll be 2 passed away and 2 that have passed away and 3 that are still with us. And it includes not only board builders, but people like Sparky from Rainbow Sandals, for example. He's going to be on the first list. Then it'd be the founder of OP next year. That started down in San Clemente, in the Los Molinos Business District. So going forward, we just have this panel that's going to select.
So it's annual?
Annual. We want to make it an annual.
Aren't there some artists too that?
Yeah, there's artists.
Which should be included, which aren't board builders necessarily.
No, but as long as they've contributed to the industry.
Okay.
The surfing industry,
Surfing industry.
not skate or
It could be tie-ins there.
Okay.
But right now it's defined as the surfing industry.
So it's to bring attention to that area. So you wouldn't do them around the pier bowl or anything like that?
We could, but we thought it'd be appropriate to start it there in the Los Molinos Business District.
Okay.
Yeah, when we did the West Pico corridor plan, this is a big point in that. Now, it didn't get to the planning commission, discussed a lot, but I mean, I went to the Los Molinos Business District meeting several times and talked to a lot of the business owners that are down there. I met you a couple times.
Yeah.
And this is their number one thing that they want to do. They don't want to be at the pier. They want to make Los Molinos this little enclave, have its own identity that's eclectic, and celebrate the surf culture in there. So I think keeping it in there is cool. In fact, I think this is to me, incrementally, the way to go. Let's start with something like this, but make it in such a way that people can add on, right? I know I've got another guy that owns a building kind of on Cali Valley, but he's got a big wall. He's like, I want to put a surf mural on there. I know other guys are want to do public art as well. They want to make a sense of when you get to Los Molinos that celebrates the surf culture with the murals or some kind of other gateway. So to me, this fits perfectly with that vision that I heard when I was really trying to, because I was new on planning commission, I was trying to really figure this, never been down there. So I spent a lot of time down there and realized, wow, this is a subculture of San Clemente, and it's for real.
Yeah.
And certain days you can go down there and you can smell the surfboards being formed and all the rest, and that's kind of what was a little bit why I wanted to learn more about. Well, we're moving from an industrial use to a mixed use. This is the shift in with this area, is going from pure industrial to a combination of mixed use and industrial. So that now, we've got your business down there, which is a brewery, right? And it's very successful, and it's always busy, and it draws in a crowd on the weekend. So it's kind of interesting what's happening down there, because you've got the industry down there during the week, but then on the weekend, a whole nother use is sprung up in there. So to me, tying it all together with this, and even being more intentional would be good. What I'd like to do for us is just dive into the implementation of this, but I just want to speak generally supportive of the concept and say, I think you guys ought to be leading to create, as part of the Los Molinos Business Association, this part of that, the art in public places, and have a committee, have a structure, so that if people want to do a mural or people want to do other things, you guys can all organize that and then come to the city as a group and say, yeah, we want to do this now, or we want to do that there. So it's a little bit organized. It's not just like you and your 5 buddies are going to go do this, someone's going to go do that. So that would be the one thing, Roman, I would ask that you would consider, not just this, but like yes, this, I get the implementation of this, but you'd be, as far as the governance of art and public spaces in the Los Molinos area, that you just be open to, you know, how do we want to do that in Los Molinos? And maybe you guys could just be the arm of this, but just advocate, if you don't mind, like you do need a governing group that can kind of coordinate that.
Yeah.
Because this is a great idea, and it will probably, because I know, since I went down there and I met a lot of, I mean, I met a lot of guys down there, and at that time I was stupid enough to give my phone number. So they're still calling me. Literally, I still get calls to this day from guys down there saying, hey, I want to do this, and I'll always, am I right? And I've referred a lot of people to call Jonathan. I've said, call Christopher Wright. Don't, I can't help you, but I can tell you, I kind of have a feel for what's going on down there, and that's a thing.
And there is a mural and ordinance and all that Jonathan can give you for sizes and whatnot. But that's already established.
So it's to honor these people, but it's also to help activate this zone, right? Because it's already going that direction.
It's going, yeah.
Seems like it's moving a little slower than everybody would like, but you have to have businesses.
Ups and downs, it always has.
Yeah. Well, you have to have businesses that want to come in. Generally, I think it's a great idea. A couple things to clarify. So it says 16-inch square there. You said 12-inch.
He said just over 12.
Oh, just over 12.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
16.
somewhere between 12 and 16.
Yeah.
It just seems to be appropriately sized because if I remember correctly, that sidewalks kind of ebbs and flows
It does.
through.
Yeah, that's why we settled with 16 by 16.
Yeah, your building,
Okay.
there's brand new, you guys poured new sidewalk, but
Yeah.
the second we leave your property, it just like goes.
It's down to 2 feet.
It's down, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And
So
it's
it'd be
some
too
of it's pretty
big
bad.
for some of them.
Well, there may be places that they just don't belong. Put them where they
Yeah.
work.
Well, just to maintain consistency throughout the.
Yes.
My one concern is we've got pretty strict rules on washing sidewalks and all. And I don't know if the embossed lettering and all is going to get so packed in with dirt and grime and whatnot.
It's roughly
Because we don't
16
power wash sidewalks anymore.
It's a 16th of an inch thick, and it's a water jet that we're using to create the.
Can we do that?
How else?
They have to collect all the water from when they do that.
Can we wash? What's sorry?
Sidewalk washing.
No, I mean, you have to collect all the water.
Yeah.
So if he's gonna, I think you were saying water jet to make.
To make it,
yeah,
which is
to make
opposite,
the-
yeah.
not
We're
to.
talking
No,
two
I
different
understand
things
that. I'm
there.
talking
Oh,
about
okay.
maintaining it, or
How else would you do it?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to
I mean,
figure
I
out.
like the subtlety.
One way you do
Of
it
this
is inlays,
image.
and you don't do it as an etching, so that you don't have stuff
Yeah, I
in there.
don't want to glaze it, and I don't know what our options are, but you might look more, I mean, I love the look. Can it be maintained? I don't know.
No,
I'm
I
not
think,
an expert.
I'm thinking about, and I haven't been down there in a long time, but, Palm Springs where they have the much wider sidewalks. And it's pretty cool, to walk and, you go, wow, who's this guy? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I think those are actually embossed, I'm pretty sure. Maybe they have an inlay. That might be a place
That
to
might
check.
be what it is.
I know that's more
That's a
expensive.
possibility. Is also doing an inlay. We've explored that.
And an inlay would be easier to maintain.
Yeah.
Because it's all flush.
It's not catching
flush,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's a
I like the
possibility.
idea of the subtlety.
Okay.
So if you do an inlay, because I think in Palm Springs, it's like a brass or something like that, and it fits Palm Springs.
They're probably copies
It's more of a
Hollywood,
relief,
Walk
too.
of Fame.
It's higher than the actual sidewalk.
No,
It's
I think it's an
similar.
actual flush
Okay.
inlay, which is, I'm sure, not cheap to do, but if you're only doing a couple a year, maybe it's, who pays for these? You guys?
We currently have $10,000 awarded to us to pay for this, and we'll do fundraising to
Okay.
continue that.
So there'll be a fund,
Yep.
annual fund that's applied, so that might dictate to some degree how many you do each year, I guess, how much you have.
Well, we want to limit it to five to six per year.
Okay.
And it costs us roughly $350 each to do.
The way this is
To make
designed.
that one.
Okay.
No.
So can you explain the symbols that are on
The
this?
symbols, I believe, we're going to remove. I think it's too convoluted. It's just going to be
Yeah, it's
Board
not too
Builders
much.
Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And it'll have the name, Los Molinos Business District, and San Clemente.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. There's Hall of Fame, board builders. Obviously, you want the person's name,
Yes.
but could it be more sort of symbolic? So you have, let's say it's a surf related, and there's some symbol
Yeah.
that lets you know that. That way, you could have a skate, or you could have an art, somebody, and maybe it's just a symbol.
It's different.
That
It's a different
indicates-
icon.
Yeah. I mean, I like this
Instead of a
guy's.
picture.
I like this guy's image, but that may not always, right? That may not always be the right
Yeah.
choice. So he looks like a Joseph Smith or something.
I mean, it could even be their logo.
You had to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we
It's
discussed,
recorded
putting our logo on the tiles themselves.
I mean, it could be a Dewey Weber.
I like the
Or
idea
whatever.
of the icon representing what their
Yeah.
contribution
Decal.
was. If they
Kind of
were a
shape.
shaper
Yeah, that
icon,
typical.
maybe they're a champion.
or
So
what-
that's
icon.
when we started
Or
out with
artist.
that. So it'd be like for Brad Basham, he was a shaper, he was a sander, he was a glasser, he was a painter. So he encompassed the whole board building process.
Hmm.
But one thing we did talk about was putting, like, say if Brad had his logo or Dale Velzy, he's one of the first inductees, putting his logo on the actual tile.
Anybody in surfing wouldn't know exactly what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I think the thought there was, does it make sense to come up with definitions of a few classes, like a shaper, which might include like the glasser and other
That's,
things,
yeah,
and then like apparel, which might cover Sparky and some
Yeah.
others, and then athlete, that might cover some of those. Is that kind of the thought?
Yeah.
where you have an icon
But it's
that
really
associates
broad,
it?
like shapers, everything is in shaping, or if it's apparel, it's part of industry. It's an industry versus the athletic, like a performance. So you'd have like 3 or 4 different.
surfers,
High
not
level.
too many. I think we're really focusing in on the board builders and the industry itself.
Because that's what this district is really known
Yeah,
for.
right.
It's not
Yeah,
known as
exactly.
a skate issue. It's
Have
not
you
known as
talked to Surfing Heritage Museum?
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, they're on board with what we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like the subtlety of it, but there's just too much there.
Too much
And-
going on.
and
Yeah.
The ones that you see, like on, Hollywood, they don't have a picture person.
It's a
They
name
just
and a
have
star,
a name.
right?
That's
And
right.
what their category was.
And that, to me, that's the key, right? That we're honoring this person.
Yeah.
You got his name, her name, or whatever. But do you even need to really say Los Molinos District? I know
We don't have
that should be more of as you turn on to Los Molinos, there's an indicator of some sort that this is the entrance.
Yeah.
And it'd
Those-
be cool if they picked out a particular, the Walk of Fame.
That's what I was going to say. You need to define a route, and it needs to be clearly identified. This is the Los Molinos Walk of Fame,
Yeah.
and have a plaque that says this
Right
is what
in
it's
front
for.
of the patio.
We want to do that.
You can probably put it right on your.
We want to do that in the park, right in front
Okay.
of the
Across the street
tilted
from your
pine.
thing.
Yeah, that's phase 2 of this whole process.
Well, and I think you should be. I like Cameron's idea of having somebody organize this, because you should be, careful about where you put these, where it's going to be convenient
Yeah,
for people, because you want people to kind of walk along. Oh, let's see who else is on here.
Los Molinos
So that-
Boulevard is in the general plan and we did it in the Pico specific plan, designated as a living street, which meant that's where and that's where I had a lot of conversations with staff and Christopher a lot about hold the phone on this whole mixed use thing. I don't want mixed use next to somebody's industrial. And so they kind of got me comfortable with this. No, it's going to be this Los Molinas corridor,
Yeah.
the living street where your business is and where most of the other non-industrial businesses are located. So to me, it's both sides of that street, and that's where I think it's your promenade. It's to me, and I envision street festivals. Like you'd shut that down on weekends, and you could have that's where you could part do your bands, and part where you could open it up to the community and invite them down for special events. So to me, that's where this would fit, right? And then people come down, they go, well, this is cool, and it kind of walks them down the street, right? Tells the story.
So we're planning on
It needs
shutting
more-
down the street when we do this. On September 9th, we're going to have a festival. It's called Rhythm and Resin. And it'll be part of the induction to the Hall of Fame, as well as 70 vendors, all surf related or industry related, 12 bands, food,
Yeah.
and beer. First year it'll be free. We'll have it all, everything's all ordered off and contained. But the second year we'll start charging, getting bigger bands into the event.
Where the band's gonna be, right there. on the
See
left.
see the big tree in the park?
That's
Oh,
the
yeah. Okay.
So right there. That's the main stage.
And what
Right there.
you'll want to do is obviously get a permit.
Yep.
And you're going to want to coordinate with this and maybe pay for the trolley to come down from the mall and do the loop back and forth.
We're final stages of the permit right
Okay, yeah. So, but to me, again, I'm just back to this, your proposal, that Calle de Los Molinos, that is, from where you're basically, you could back up a little bit around the corner, but basically from where you are towards the ocean. Yeah, all the way down to SC Furniture. Like that is it. And it's frankly from your point, your property, towards the ocean, towards SC Furniture, that's where the sidewalk is in horrible disrepair. And this program could fix that. And one of the things that we talked about with the West Corridor specific plan was the issue we have with landscaping. Is there landscaping? Is there not landscaping? Should we just make it just all one wide sidewalk so when people park there and open the door, they don't hit a tree or a bush and step into DG? So to me, I'm getting ahead of myself, but these are things you're going to encounter and you're going to want to think about. So you're going to want to, to me, that's all, Jonathan, kind of staff stuff that needs to be worked through. I think you just really want our input on the sign. And
No, that's good input though, because as we go through, again, encroachment permit's going to be needed, and as we get to a spot that may have been just arbitrarily, the landscape was removed or something of that sort. I mean, that can be a conversation.
That's actually a nicer spot.
What do we want? Like
that's nicer.
Sure.
That's nice.
Yes. Sometimes you get asphalt that's just uneven, and
I can't tell you there are people that have called me and said, come down here, and then I'll say, look, this is my business, open my door, and you hit a tree, and they go, and the city planted this, and they don't even maintain it. I mean, I could go on for hours on stuff I heard down there. So that's all I'm saying, is you're gonna run into that, but it would be nice. This is what I'm just describing here, all the way down here. And maybe over time, you can do both sides of the street.
So
this is the living street right here.
The whole plan was to start, actually fill this block.
Yeah.
And then move this way.
Go north.
Because that's where the majority of the surf.
Yeah. Plus we got surfing
Fill
on
this
trees.
block, that'll be the second block. And then move across the street. And then work our way back.
Eventually, you want to go all the way down, because to me,
We will,
this is what
I
you're
agree.
going to block. Are you going to block when you have your thing? Is it going to be here?
It's gonna start here.
Yeah.
Because we have to allow access to the towing company.
And then
next year it'll go further.
Yeah.
It'll go all the way to the end of the park. And then this thoroughfare will be open.
So people get
access.
But this is the living street.
This
Right
will
here.
be barricaded off.
Yeah.
Across here. So it'd be.
I got you.
from here to here,
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
actually.
But this should be your gateway into the Los Molinas, that's it.
Now, when's your event?
September 9th.
So you're working
Coming up quick.
backwards.
Yeah, very quick.
Cool.
So
That's a good idea.
yeah, if we
I think the main thing that we talked about as far as implementation of those signs is if it's etched out, the maintenance of it versus if it's just all flush with inlays, right? I mean, Roman, what's your feeling about that?
The inlays, that's
Yeah.
great.
Okay,
We have that option.
okay.
Yeah.
It would be cool
And
if
it's
you
a
guys.
contrasting, it'll be a contrasting porcelain tile. The same,
Okay,
with the same slip resistance.
that's the main thing is that we just can't have a liability, right? We can't have it when it gets wet, it can't get slipped.
We'll leave that up to Zach.
Yeah,
Get that coefficient of friction just right.
We're a
Yeah,
little
let's see
concerned
some.
right now on that. Because they're at 0.42 and we need at least a 0.6. So that leads us into like, long-term, what do we do on this? Not only do we want the design parameters to be consistent so that in 10 years, somebody else who's saying, well, hey, why wasn't I invited or doing this and this? So you want a consistent standard. I need a 0.6 somehow, but I don't know if I want it to be some spray-on thing that then now the city is out here every 6 months testing it or doing something. It has to
No.
be something that's permanent.
yeah.
So it has to be into the manufacturer of it. So it's going to be interesting in talking to them on how they can get that up. It says at least 0.42, but it's got to be at least 0.6. Because when somebody slips, they're going to come to us, and that's the first thing they're going to do.
Right.
I mean, we get lawsuits over a grain of
I'll be
sand.
walking down there first rain to see if I can
Is that change based on
make a quick buck.
size of tile?
It's based on
You know, you've got mosaics, you've got the grout joints and all that create some friction or traction.
realistically, it's any size
Okay.
because a high heel could get in there and stuff. Because one of the recent claims we have is a high heel on our truncated domes. A dome piece fell off, and it only missed that much of an area, and that's what they are claiming is the lawsuit. So it could be any little size. So the friction is one of our engineering concerns, and then just is the city going to own them, or are they going to have a long-term insurance plan of cover? It's easier for the city to just say us.
Yeah.
But if they would have to have if it's privately owned, we'd have to have insurance pretty much forever for them, which is hard to
And encroachment
hard to do.
permits require that.
I think probably it'll be city ownership, so I think we'll probably have to go through a process of like a public donation, so like a council acceptance of the items and acceptance of kind of the in lieu work that they'll be doing and an acknowledgement of the encroachment permit. That's probably the path forward because the reality of just organizations, over time, like ideally these are going to be there for a very long time, and Roman, hopefully this outlives him. Right,
Yeah.
something of this sort, and then
He's a young guy.
I know that might be a long
I know
time,
about that.
but the insurance is challenging with especially more of a nonprofit or organization of that sort. So it makes more sense for the city to take ownership of those.
And I don't know how it is in Huntington with their Walk of Fame and stuff like that. They are a panel, or they're a 503 or the 501 nonprofit. And it's a whole voting body that gets into it. So that's something that we've talked about too. Is it just 4 people finding their friend? No offense.
No,
Is it Matt Biola's putting Randall on this thing?
That's why I'm saying there needs to be
So
like a
the
governance.
city
thing.
almost needs a veto power if for some reason somebody's there's comical people that got slipped into surf movies, and I don't want
Well,
to see a rain.
when I had just one sec, Larry. When I originally went down there, I had told the business association, you need to incorporate. You need to go to the city and say we want to be recognized as an official business association, and this is our charter, and these are some of the things that we're going to do, including all of this. And then you're actually recognized as a governing body by the city. You have a board, you have a charter, you have a process, versus what seems great, but it does seem ad hoc, and that's the challenge.
That's the fear.
So we are in the process.
Sorry, Larry wanted to
creating
comment.
that. We are creating a nonprofit for it.
Yeah, question for Roman. You have some ladies lined up on your list too?
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, we do. It's like we just had that conversation 2 minutes ago. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be like a 501c3?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so when we do the donation acceptance, this is less like a little bit of a deviation off the design, but that might be something that comes up through that conversation. Is does it make sense for there to be like a city representative or a representative from another nonprofit like SHAC or something like that, just so that there's a little expanding the net a little bit in that conversation of appointments. And I have no dog in that, but I know that the city has had issues. One example are Courtney Sandcastle Park, where different people want different recognitions, and that elevates and gets contentious. And so just having that be very clear of like who's involved in that process, and ideally some form of, you know, an appointment or election, and not just a self-appointment type of a setup, so that moving forward it has that sense of legitimacy, especially since it's in the public space, would be helpful.
And I think that's a great example of why we're kind of having some of those concerns with that Courtney's issue that popped up, and just seeing how this is. If you don't, you know, if one shape,
Somebody's going to get their feathers ruffled.
No,
matter what.
It's inevitable. Somebody will.
It's a when, not if.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will find something that falls within this.
So we let Zach work out the details.
it goes 0.6 is the coefficient of friction when it's 5% or less, which it should be on this street. And it goes up to 0.8 if you're on a steeper street. And so if you start getting in, and I only see this on Los Molinos, the other streets don't have the right of way.
Yeah.
And so we have a hard time even getting sidewalks.
But it's consistent with the general plan as that concept of living street, that this would be compatible.
Right.
But it is just Camino de los Molinos, only that,
Yes.
through that area. Yeah, it's just that street. Not Cali Valley, not the rest, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for coming in. Good idea.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to seeing it.
Great.
Coming and checking out the big event.
All right.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be hanging out in his patio.
Are you going to be around?
Good to see you, Larry.
Thanks.
See you, Larry.
I'll have some.
All right, so
Having a hamburger.
moving on, we don't have any new business, no old business. Nobody here to, Zach, you have anything else you want to say?
I got nothing.
All right. So do I have a motion to
You got
adjourn?
one. I move we adjourn to the regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee. Will be held on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 at 3 p.m. in the community room, 910 Calle Negocio.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
It'll definitely be interesting
$22.
program. I'm trying to figure
That's
out
where
how
the
to do this before
the ADA just recoup some of that lost time.
Well, they aren't going to lay
Up
one
your
in the
per
ground or
hour.
anything. Well, they
I
could
mean,
have-
maybe September
They
9th,
could
if
do
they
it.
show up and they just have their little plaques on a
Yeah.
board saying
Yeah.
this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I don't think
or
they're
they
gonna,
could have
yeah.
a sample.
Just sitting there up
Piece of
on an A-frame or something.
Yes, they're not
You
gonna
know,
make it
because
by
I don't
this,
think-
there's no way.
I had a beer there like 2 weeks ago. Where are you?
Yeah,
And then the other day I went in again. He's like, I'm coming.
yeah, they're not gonna make it. There's no way.
I don't want to hear that last minute I held you up. So that friction, he's got some work.
Okay.
I'm glad I went and looked at that again because he's off.
That,
You can probably
that street
find out
fair
from,
permit should- needs a lot of work too.
To be honest with you, a kitchen consultant.
Oh yeah.
If anybody knows one around here, like Regal or whoever they used to be, they knew all the materials and how they got their coefficients of friction.
So these people knew it. They already had testing for that particular plaque. So there's a 4-set series of any tile that you put in the street, like we did it for our Ardo brick and those tiles that we have. And we actually invited other manufacturers